Hi and welcome back.
This is Simon.
And this is Matthias. Last time we were testing a flagship phone, the LG G4. This time we are testing a budget phone, the ZTE Blade S6.
And even though the price is only around $300, this is a great phone.
The first thing you will notice when you look at the the Blade 6, is the design. We can see that ZTE have been looking quite a lot at the design of the iPhone 6. The Blade S6 fits nice in the hand. It is a little bit slippery, but this is nothing too serious. Under the screen we can see three buttons, a back, a home and an option button. All these buttons are touch and not real buttons. The home button also serves as an LED indicator and lights up when you get a message, for example. The backside of the phone is made of plastic. It feels a little bit cheap, but it is still nice to hold, and the Blade S6 is one of the better designed plastic phones. In the corner we have a 13 megapixel camera, which we will talk about more later. And on the bottom we find an average speaker, which tend to vibrate a little bit when you play sound.
And now the operating system. The UI is not as every other Android smartphone. It has a flat and simple UI, and just as the design, it looks almost the same as iOS on the iPhones. It works fine and is almost buttery smooth. But even if the UI is good, some of the stock apps is a disappointment. Most of the apps is not ZTE own apps and is taken from stock Android. But the apps that ZTE made by themselves, like the calculator and the calendar, looks old and ugly. Even the ZTE keyboard is terrible and probably the worst keyboard we've ever used on phone ever. Luckily, the stock Android keyboard is pre-installed and easy to change to. And even if it wasn't, it is free to download in the Google Play Store. And now the hardware. If you look at the hardware, you can see that this budget phone has hardware like the high-end phones. For example, it has an octacore processor with 2 GB of RAM. It also has 16 GB of internal storage with microSD slot for up to total of 80 GB. The screen is a 5-inch IPS screen with 720p resolution, which makes the PPI lower than 300. And the screen handles sunlight really good, even though the brightness isn't set to max. There's also a good thing that this phone have, and that is the dual SIM capabilities, which is great if you want the same phone for work and private use.
The Blade S6 has a 2400 mAh battery. It's not a big battery, but it's not small either. The battery life, however, isn't that great. With light usage, it survives a day without problem. With normal usage, it probably will survive a day, but with heavy usage, as we are used to, the Blade S6 would need a twice as big battery. Another thing I miss is a battery saver. Most phones these days have problems to survive many days if needed, and the battery saving mode is standard on many phones today. But the ZTE doesn't have a saving mode, and that is a drawback. The camera is a 13 megapixel on the rear and a 5 megapixel on the front. However, the cameras doesn't perform near as good as on the high-end phones like the G4, the iPhone 6, Samsung Galaxy Note 4 and the S6, etc. The camera really seems to have big problems with focusing on, for example, flowers with a bright background, even though you use advanced settings which it supports. But in good conditions the camera takes good pictures. And the 5 megapixel front facing camera doesn't perform near as good as 1.2 megapixel front camera on the iPhone 6.
And now over to gaming. Play heavy games on a low-end phone is usually a bad idea. This isn't the case with the Blade S6. We have been testing some heavy games and the phone does not perform great, but it doesn't make the games unplayable and it's still fun to play. In fact, it is better to play with the Blade S6 than the Z3 Plus because of the heat that Z3 Plus generates when gaming. The Blade S6 does generate some heat when playing, but not that much. If you're satisfied with a half-decent phone in pretty much all categories, the Blade S6 is one of the most price-worthy phones on the market.
And the overall feeling is good. And if you choose to buy the Blade S6 instead of the iPhone 6, you can buy 40 pizzas. That's a lot of pizzas.
And if you have $300 to spend, the Blade S6 among Samsung Galaxy A3 and the Motorola Moto G is the best phones on the market.
Thank you for watching. Like if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more. See you next time.
Bye. One of the most price-worthy phones on the market. The overall feeling...
Ja, just det var mitt. Ja, vi kör om det.
If you are satisfied with a half-decent phone in almost every category... If you're satisfied with a half-decent phone in pretty much all categories, the Blade S6 is...
Ja, vänta, vi kan ta ett nytt klipp där nästan.